the topic we kind of wanted to talk about today was what kind of experiences people look for and also, shy away from. So the red and green flags for both play groups and LGSs that people go to, like different experiences people have had, things where they're like, yeah, I like that, or maybe I'm not coming back here.
We've all kind of experienced, like I shouldn't say we've all, but I know a lot of us have probably experienced going into an LGS. You're there and you either play a game or even just walk around a little bit, and pretty quick you can get a sense of, I don't know if I'm going to come back,
I mean, some people are lucky enough that they've only had good experiences, and
Yeah.
we don't wish ill upon you.
Oh yeah, no. I wish everyone excellent LGS experiences, if possible. But we all know we've been there, or like many of us have been there, where it's been like, ugh.
Right. Whether it be people's behavior, the LGS itself, because I know sometimes stores aren't ran very well.
Mm-hmm.
It might be people's hygiene.
Yep.
It could be due to the way the store is laid out. That was part of my problems I've had with LGSs in the past.
Yep.
But a quick side comment question for you, and you are not prepared for this.
Nope.
But
Never.
let's say you decided you can't go to your favorite LGS anymore for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many other options do you actually have? Because I know for a lot of people it's kind of like a desert where it's that or nothing.
Yeah, I've got, technically, for ease, like one. I basically have one. I do have more for special events. So like if unfortunately, let's say a big unfortunate thing happens and both of the local game stores in my area close, I could drive an hour and a half and get to a store that I like, that I could go to, but I wouldn't be able to do that every week. I wouldn't be drafting every week. I'd probably just do that for a pre-release or something like that. Now I am lucky that I have an extra, but yeah, it's not many. And prior to that one opening up, and that one just opened up last year. Prior to that, we had one, and that was it for years, for over a decade at least.
Right. Yeah, because I think about where I live, there isn't one in my town, right? And I don't live in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
And even where I grew up, there wasn't even one within an hour, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny where I am now. I'm kind of like in the middle of a lot of big cities, or at least okay sized cities. I'll say not big, but at least 5-digit populations, right?
Yeah.
So when I was looking to get an LGS, there was like 6 that I was considering that were in all various directions. I reached out to them, figured out like what dates they did Commander Night, if they had Modern or any of that stuff, and like how much it cost, right? And that was the big thing for me was some of them made you pay to play casual, right? And it's like that's one of the things I saw that kind of sparked this whole thought process was some people's stores still charge them $5 to $10 to play without even prizes, and that's not okay to me. Like I'm traveling as it is. I'm going to probably buy things every now and then while I'm there. I shouldn't have to pay to be in your space, especially if your store smells like cat piss.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There should be a cat piss discount.
Right. But I luckily the one that's closest to me is the one I go to now, and they're free to play. The only problem is like parking's a bit of a problem based on where they are. But I just walk a block and I'm fine, right? Because there's parking lots there in a downtown area. The one I tried before them was my really bad experience where you get in there and it's a small back room with like a couple tables that aren't wide enough to have people sitting side by side. So people tend to use the 2 tables as one with like their bags thrown about. And then it's literally just, so there's 6 tables in total, really 3, and then like loud people talking. The room's like not even 12 by 12, right? So it's like I'm trying to like hear the person across from me, and I can't hear him over the teen in the corner yelling obscenities and joking around.
Yeah,
it's like I'm done with this place. I'm just done. The store owner even like apologized as I left, and I'm like, you could have done something. You could have asked them to pipe down, but no, you go in there and you rile them up. So it's like whatever. I'm out of here. This is not my demographic.
And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that happens sometimes. I know my main local game store. They do have a table charge, but it's only in scenario. It's actually only for they'll do Commander Nights, and there'll be a table charge for Commander Nights, but that's if you want prizing. So if you just want to go and play a game of Commander, that's fine. If you want to go and play in their commander night, then, and it's not even like a tournament. It's not like they're playing tournament. It's just, oh, if you want to play a game of Commander tonight and in our Commander night, then you pay $5, and then whoever wins the game gets a couple packs. Like that's what they do. The only other table charge I think they have is for board games. Because they have a board game night, and they have a whole library of games that you can go in and just pull off the shelf and play. And I think they do a table charge for that, but they waive it if you buy anything. So, which I think is fair. It kind of makes sense. Like they want to recoup at least a little bit.
But I think that's a fair thing though, right? If you're going expecting, whether it's 5 or 10 or whatever it may be, as long as there's something at the end, like a prize pack or whatever, right? Like you're buying that then, right? The store's always giving you something for paying them money.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think one of the basic either red flag, green flag, depending on which scenario you're walking into with an LGS is the how it's out. Why are words hard tonight? The outlay, like the how layout. That's what it was. Wow, my brain completely flipped those two words. And layout. It's the layout of the place, the cleanliness of the place. And one thing, this is a major thing for me, is the bathrooms.
Yep.
How clean are the bathrooms? And it's a special bonus points for if they have, like, I will give a local game store major props if you go in there and you see there's a little caddy of like extras, like hygiene products and wipes, like hand wipes and sanitizing wipes and those kinds of things. Even during the pandemic, my LGS had masks. It's like a little box of masks in there, because it just shows that they're thinking of their customers. They're thinking, beyond just, people do number 1 and number 2 and that is it. They're thinking beyond that, and that just shows that they're being thoughtful, and I like that, and that's always a good sign to me.
Right, that came up a few times. So I posted this to Reddit asking people for their other experiences. A decent amount of people talking about it, and there's a few that mentioned that they love that when an LGS has like personal hygiene products either out for free or for like $1, whatever it may be, right? Because sometimes you just needed it and you didn't have a chance to go home.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it be deodorant or a toothbrush or feminine hygiene products and stuff like that too, where it's at least being thoughtful that like, hey, people may or may not need this, and like while it's not what our store sells, it's helpful because people want to feel at home.
It's that little extra. I'm sure many of us have been in a situation where we get somewhere and something happens. Whatever that something is, it is a potentially embarrassing situation. And when you go into the bathroom and you see the solution to that situation right in front of you, that is like, the relief is like indescribable. So it's just nice to see when an LGS does that. And I remember one of the first times I noticed that at my current LGS, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Now, if only the snacks that they sold weren't ones that are crummy and like with fingerprints.
Yeah. That's always the struggle.
From a young age, I had it ingrained in my brain that I had to like wash my hands all the time if I ever wanted to play the PlayStation or anything like that. So like, I think my hands don't produce as much oil anymore because like they're dry all the time now from this. So it's like, it's a problem. I can't like, so like you're doing self-checkout at a store and you have to like open the next page. I can't do that. Like my hand's that dry, I can't thumb it open.
Well, here's a tip, because how a lot of people will do they'll lick their fingers and do that, and I think that's gross. It's and I think that's gross, and I won't do that because I don't know who's touched those bags, and I've been sitting there trying to grip it and it doesn't work. This is a little secret. Now it works for me as particularly because I'm a bald man. But it also works for me.
Oh God, where's this going?
You'll see. But also I this is a little bit of a personal information here, but if it gets above 60 degrees and I start walking somewhere, I sweat. Like I just sweat. So what I do when I get in that situation, I realize it's not necessarily like less gross, but in my mind, I think it's less gross. So
It,
I just
it's more hygienic.
yeah,
I'll say that. It's
yeah.
more
Well,
hygienic. You're not putting anything in your mouth.
yeah, exactly. What I do is if I'm trying to get the bags and I can't get them, I will just wipe my fingers across my forehead, which is literally pouring in sweat usually at that point. And it works every goddamn time. I am not kidding. It works so well. And I think it's another reason why I don't think it's as bad is because the bag that I'm touching to do it is the bag I take. So
Right.
so the combination of not touching my fingers to my tongue and not, and then I'm taking the bag that has my sweat on it.
The the
I,
only downside is you do have to touch the screen afterwards.
True, but usually what I tend to do is I'll do it with my right hand because for me it's a little bit easier because I'm left-handed. The bags are on the left. I still use my right hand, and then I use my left hand for the screen. So yeah, foolproof. It's foolproof. Anyway,
The only two things I do, and you're not allowed to cut any of this, by the way.
Man.
I'll either, if I have something that was like refrigerated or frozen, I'll wipe my finger on it to get the dew.
That's a good
Or
idea.
I just I'll make my wife or my kids do it because it's like they can do it, I can't. And like I make my wife bag now. Like you just get over there, open the bag.
You're oily. Go over there and get the get the bag.
Well, that's the same thing with like when we're like picking up the dog crap outside. Like we use bags for that. Like the bags you use if you walk your dog.
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, give me 10 of these. I can't open it unless I go to the sink and wipe my finger. So, but let us know what you guys do if you have dry hands.
Yeah, exactly. If you have dry hands, do you do the lick? Do you do the sweat on the forehead? Or do you do something else grosser?
The good part though, and the blessing is, my cards don't get oily.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. You
so I'll take the win.
Yeah, take that win. Take it. So, anyways, back to flags. But one red flag that somebody mentioned. It's actually one of the ones higher up in the list, and I thought it was so interesting because it created a dialogue in underneath that I thought was an interesting thing to see play out. Basically, what it was somebody mentioned that it wasn't necessarily a red flag, but this was Life or Revenge, I think is the name of the person. I don't know if I'd call it a red flag necessarily, but every time I play with a couple, there is always really weird energy where they either get overly sensitive about interacting with each other's board, or they focus on their partner for no reason. It's almost always awful. Parent-child duos tend to be really chill, though. And what
You're not biased there at all.
Yeah, not biased at all. I think with I think there's that's actually a pretty interesting dynamic. The two dynamics are completely different for obvious reasons. I think it might be that parent-child are more chill is because there is a power dynamic there where the parent, is kind of almost like, hey, now you need to, where in a healthy couple relationship that shouldn't exist. So that it's more of a Wild West kind of a situation. Or maybe, maybe that is, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist.
The interesting thing there is like, from what they explained, and if you played Magic at all at an LGS or even with friend groups, you've seen it every now and then. You've at least seen it once and you know what they're talking about. It's not an all the time thing, and they're probably thinking of a very specific couple, right?
Yeah.
The last couple I played against, it wasn't quite that, but I've had varying experience from that. But you want to talk about like what they were talking about?
Well, I found it really interesting. What I found interesting was a couple comments down. Somebody commented, when my wife and I play with others, I warn them of her decks. No one ever listens. Then I become the target. She ends up winning. And somebody brought it up, and this was the dynamic or the discussion that I found interesting, because somebody else brought it up. They basically said, this is kind of what the earlier guy is saying. If I'm a new player in a pod, having some guy try to convince me to target his wife while I have no information on both of them is just a weird vibe. And yeah, like think about that. If you sit down in a play group and the two people you're playing against are a couple, and the dude's going, hey man, her deck is insane, you need to take her out. Are you going to listen to him? Like, are you,
Well,
or are you going to think he's just giving his wife shit for, whatever reasons, and I just found that really interesting, that back and forth.
and that applies though to for if you're playing against people who played each other more often and know each other's deck as well.
Yeah.
That's not just couple problem, because even then, like I think of a few of the people at the LGS, and I've only been there a few times, but like I know their deck because like
Yeah.
they'll have like two or three, right? And it's like, okay, they're playing that. It's like, okay, well, I know how this is going to go now.
Yeah.
I have a bias towards what they're playing because I've played that deck.
Yeah.
And if someone hasn't, it's like, hey, this deck's a problem once they can get their commander out. Like, kill
Well,
them before that happens.
Well, but the interesting bit was somebody actually brought up that same scenario, and they actually said it's in their opinion, it's less weird if it's the same scenario but not a couple, just a regular dude friends warning each other. And if you think about it, that's kind of right. Like, if it comes off more, and maybe it's a thing that maybe it wouldn't be as weird if the wife was warning about the husband, and that might be a whole like whole patriarchal societal commentary there, which is way beyond what I'm willing to dive into. But if you look at those three scenarios, a husband warning about a wife, or a friend warning about another friend, or would it be weird if it's a husband warning about his husband? Like I'm not sure. Like because I've never been in that scenario myself.
I don't.
But
at least in my head, gender doesn't really matter for this because it's more of the, hey, you should pick on my partner.
Yeah.
Because I want to see them suffer.
Yeah. And that I think that's what it is. Once you realize that people are involved romantically, it does affect their dynamic on how they interact and how you view that interaction. So I just thought that was really interesting about a red flag. I don't know if that's necessarily a red flag for an LGS, unless you have like a swingers LGS or something like that.
We're not going down that rabbit hole. All right.
Though I have a new idea for a business.
Not going there, Nate.
Have you seen how horny Magic Twitter is? Magic Twitter.
I bought
horny.
I bought a pineapple today. Okay, I'm leaving it at that. But no. So I think it extends beyond that, though. I think it's, for me, the problem's just in general sitting down on a pod with a couple, depending on how their dynamic is. If they treat each other at all, anything like private life on the table, I have a problem with it. Where it's like, oh, I'm not going to swing at you now, or we're like a two-headed giant, he.
Yeah.
Like I have problems with that, and that's what I've experienced in the past. Where usually it's like the guy's trying to kind of white knight, get his girl to be performing better at the table, and like attacking the other people and dealing with threats and not attacking them.
Yeah.
And that's a problem to me, right? That's the whole king making conversation, except you're queen making at that point.
Yeah.
Well, the reverse applies too, though, where it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to punch you because I'm dating you.
Yeah. And I think, and that's what I've experienced as well. I've experienced a couple where the one member of the couple is particularly like, you really got to worry about this, because if she gets out of control or he gets out of control, it's going to go, and yeah, that is a little like, okay, so I guess I'm ignoring both of you, and I'm just going to build my board and attack whoever, and we'll see what happens,
Have you had the situation where the one is a Magic player, the other one's trying to get into the hobby because they're significant others into it, and they're playing the other's deck, which means the other one's telling them how to play it at the same time?
Yeah.
And you're literally just fighting a game against one person twice.
Yeah. And like, to be honest, that I don't mind as much, because I view that as trying to get somebody in the game, because I am keenly aware, as I'm sure many of us are, of trying to get our partners into the game. And many of us have experienced the feeling that many of us know, which is the realization that it's just not going to happen. Like they're just doing this because they love you. They find, like, in my situation, my partner is very happy to play a game with me every now and again, but she is not interested in.
I can't even get mine to crack packs. It it has to be a Pokemon pack, otherwise it doesn't happen.
See, I can do Lorcana. Lorcana it has expanded into pack cracking. That has worked, but yeah, but really we all know, anybody who's tried to do this. So when I see somebody trying to do it and their partner is actively and may even see interested in it, and then I'm like, hey, all right, let's do it. Yes. Yeah.
My problem is when they give them their CEDH deck rather than like a precon.
Oh yeah, that's that's always rough. It's like, okay, so you're having them play ad nauseum. This is not no.
If you have to tell them what to tutor for, it's a problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Because then you're like, that's going a little too far. That's going like, okay, we need to walk before we can run. People, come on, let's go.
Yeah, right. And I think that's in general though. Like, I don't like putting tutors in my decks too often unless it's a try-hardy deck. Because I prefer having that slot be something fun, right? Like that randomness of like the casualness of like, hey, I drew something cool. How can this affect the board state? Rather than, hey, I drew a tutor. I'm gonna play a tutor, and then next turn I'll play the thing I tutored for.
Yeah, exactly. But I did want to mention a couple that I had come up with. We can go back to the Reddit post here in a minute, but there were two things that popped to my head almost immediately. The first one was, and this is specifically red flags. We're talking about individual people at the LGS.
Yep.
And it's not so much that like you need to stay away from these people or whatever, but it's if you happen to encounter a lot of folks like this at an LGS, that can speak to the LGS not keeping people in check. The first one here that just popped in my mind immediately, because I actually experienced it at a particular LGS recently, and it drives me bananas. There is a regular, this isn't at my regular LGS, this is at a different one. And this person, there is a regular there that contradicts everything. Everything. Now, I do not mind being corrected. I am happy to be corrected, especially if I'm wrong. If I am wrong and somebody says, hey, no, you're wrong, and I realize that, you have corrected me, I am fine with that because I love learning. But if everything I say is met with no, or not really, or actually, I want to just bang my head through a plate glass window. Like it drives me insane. And nobody likes to be contradicted. But there is a particular person I'm thinking of that just, and it's insane. Like there was one day where I was standing there chatting with the owner, and they were there sitting at the table, and a brand new customer came in, brand new, but was knowledgeable in Warhammer and started talking about Warhammer with the owner and said something about a situation, a rule in Warhammer. And this guy went, actually, you don't need that. You just need to go do this. And the guy said, no, the rule changed about a year ago. They allow you to do this now. Oh, no, not really. You're wrong.
It's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to be like arrogantly wrong.
Exactly. And I experienced this, and to contrast it, I experienced it at my current LGS, but years ago, like when I first started going there, they had a person who was very similar, and to this guy's credit, he was a very, very intelligent, very logical person. And he was the type of person that if you did something that he didn't think made sense, he was going to tell you about it. And, so, I, being the type of person I am, I do a lot of things that don't make sense. So he was telling me I was wrong a lot. And, to the point where the owner of my LGS noticed, and he said something. Like, he said something to the guy. He was like, hey man, like, I know you have opinions, and your opinions may even be right. He didn't ask for them. Keep them to yourself. And that was, I very much appreciated. And I didn't even have to say anything. The owner noticed it on his own. Does that mean that I do a lot of stupid shit that people feel they need to correct? Maybe. But it is definitely a red flag when I see that unchecked at an LGS for a long time.
Yeah, the unchecked part is I would definitely agree, and it's good on the store owner for saying something, especially in like a not like crappy way.
Mm-hmm.
I think the truth is there are a lot of people, and Magic has a very diverse people who play it. There's people out there who don't understand like any social intelligence or social etiquette, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that some people it is more of a disability, others are just that way.
Yeah.
Whether it's like narcissism or something else that goes on with them too.
Mm-hmm.
But don't take it personally or wrong. Just understand like sometimes what you say does affect people, and not everyone wants to hear your inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Is the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that a long time ago too. That people think I'm quiet or like angry or something. I'm like, I was brought up that if I don't have something nice to say, don't say anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like I'm just like I'll chill. I don't want to just add conversation to make noise, right? Pipe up when I need to, or if something's going on. But like even then, like we've all been there where you hear two people talking at the counter or whatever, and they're not talking about the thing correctly. I'm not going to pipe up and correct them. It's not my conversation. And they bring me in, and I'll say, "Hey, were you thinking about this?" In a polite way, not "No, you're wrong. You're talking about this card."
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Well, and I also should tag on a little note here. People who knew me 20 years ago are probably laughing their asses off because they're like, you do realize you used to be that asshole, like, and yes, I was like, because I unfortunately was not raised in that thing. My family, well, not my mother specifically. We'll get we're getting Freudian here. She's the type of person where she has opinions and she will share them whether you ask for them or not. And
unfortunately, that's a behavior you picked up, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I picked it up. It was funny. I picked it up in certain ways, but I rejected it in other ways, like in certain scenarios, I should say. So I learned like when it comes to relationships and what people should do with their lives, I was like, I'm never touching that. I am never, because that is their life. They got to live it. But when it came to like, piddly stuff, like, what deck should you build? What cards the best? What that kind of stuff. And not just in Magic, just in other places. I wanted to be right, and I wanted to get my opinion out there. I wanted to tell people what they, especially back when I was an actor. Oh my God, was I an insufferable prick? And I recognize that. I recognize that now, and I try not to be that. And you'll often notice, and I'm sure you've probably noticed this during previous episodes, that I'll often didn't try to throw in like, we're not trying to say we're the be all end all, because I do not want to do that. I do not want people to think that this is the way it should be, that I'm saying that this is the way it should be. I'm an old man yelling at clouds, because I don't want to be that. I want people to live their lives and be happy. And I'm just pointing out some crap that I hope makes their lives a little bit nicer and easier and funnier. That's my goal.
So to completely change subject here.
Please.
Sorry.
Please.
There's two different things you mentioned there that I think would be funny secret layers. The one is a Freudian secret layer, right? Where the cat is in the box and it's like a phasing to where it's either in or out, right?
Yes, Schrodinger's magic card.
Yeah, so just get into the whole like philosophy like, secret layer.
Oh, dude, I have a fantastic idea for that. Schrodinger's secret layer, where you get the box and the card is either ripped or it's not, but you won't find out until you open the box up. See,
it doesn't have to be ripped. It could just be pringled.
Oh my God. And that about does it for today. You can find DM Dingo on Twitch or on the FDS Discord. You can find me, FDSMTG, here on YouTube, FDSMTG, as well as on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, FDSMTG, basically everywhere. Also on TikTok as well. Thank you so much for listening, and you all have a wonderful day.